When you decide to allow, that is an action. When you resist nothing, it is a state of being. It's a felt experience. It's a feeling to resist nothing rather than an action. If I'm resisting nothing, it's basically you surrender to every single thing that comes at you in
You
life.
stop fighting.
You stop,
Right.
exactly. Welcome to Awakening Process 101 podcast. In this podcast, we discuss spirituality, emotional health, healing, and the true meaning of awakening in the context of our modern lives. Our goal is to spark insight and plant seeds on your path to awakening by sharing our own experiences, what worked and what didn't. Our conversations aim to serve as a roadmap, hoping that our stories will encourage you to think outside the box, shift your perspective, and view life and its lessons as moments of learning and awakening. And my name is Pernilla Burt. I am the founder of a website called Awakening 101 and this podcast, Awakening Process 101. And I'm here with my best friend, Louise, who is a Buddhist and a yoga teacher living in Denmark. We've been best friends since we were 4 years old, and we love to sit here and talk about deep stuff. Today, we have chosen a topic that is a quote from a book, actually, by Eckhart Tolle. A few weeks ago, we did an episode where we talked about the various themes in 3 books, and one of those books was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And in the beginning of his book, he talks about that moment where his depression lifted. Like there was a moment where everything changed, and all of a sudden, he heard a voice. He was super depressed, and he had a moment where he said, I cannot live with myself anymore. And when he said I and myself, he realized, wait a minute, am I one person or am I 2 people? And in that moment, there was, I would say, a large awakening moment. And he heard a voice where it said, resist nothing. So today, that is what we're going to discuss, resisting nothing, because it's a very profound state of being. A few weeks ago, in a different episode, we talked about resistance versus allowing. And I went back in there yesterday trying to understand what would be the difference in that conversation versus this conversation. And what I can say is when you decide to allow, that is an action. When you resist nothing, it is a state of being. It's a felt experience. It's a feeling to resist nothing rather than an action. And that is what we're going to discuss today, just off the bat. How or what does it mean to actually resist nothing? And I think we can begin there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pernilla. Thank you so much. When Pernilla sent this flow chart to me yesterday, I looked into it and I didn't really know what to think about resist nothing. And I felt a little bit triggered by it, I think. And
Really?
Really, exactly. And I'm happy that you actually looked up the difference by the previous episode that we have when I said resisting versus allowing, and now resist nothing. And I just would like to bring it back to the experience that I told you about that I had this morning. And now when you refer to Eckhart Tolle and that this is from one of his books, I think maybe I had one of these moments this morning where, I mean, if I can really resist nothing, everything's need to be changed because.
Wait, everything needs to change and then I can resist nothing. Is that what you came up with?
No, I know everything can just change if I resist nothing. You know what I mean? I'm so desperate in my life right now in all areas, and without telling you my whole personal journey, but having one of my children, well, actually all 3 of my children saying that I am sad and I am screaming and I'm stressed all the time. And this is what I have heard for the past year through my divorce. And they write, but I try to do as much as I can. And I work with myself and I'm definitely not perfect. And I try to say, I'm sorry when I do something wrong. And I also try to say, I fucked it up by myself. I love myself for that, to be kind to myself. I really try to work with it. But when we got to this topic, resist nothing, and I was supposed to meet up to teach this morning, and it started with the yin yoga, and I love the yin yoga.
So wait, what were you teaching? Because
yin
some
yoga,
people might
yin
know.
yoga.
Yeah, yin yoga. Okay.
Yeah, first yin yoga, then I had vinyasa flow class. But the yin yoga, and I love the yin yoga because I can be much more
Meditative.
transparent in how I guide them into all these different parts of the body and with the energies and everything that needs to be transformed. And I could feel that my vulnerability of me not being on top, of me really just allowing myself to be where I were feeling in my body. I didn't act out on it, but I could definitely resist versus allowing. And then I got into the resist nothing. And I realized that I need to resist nothing to have everything to change. And it's not me doing the change. It's the energy of when I completely resist nothing is really to surrender on a very, very, very deep and profound level.
Yeah.
There is nothing behind that. And I got a little glimpse on it. I mean, it's wonderful that Eckhart got this awakening moment. I would say that I started a little moment this morning. I started a little moment this morning. So therefore, I think it's very interesting. Why did we pick this topic, Pernilla?
Well, as you know, I've been working with surrender for years. I mean, David Hawkins, I read that Letting Go book over and over and over and over again.
It's your
So
Bible.
it's not far from what I'm working on a regular basis. And I think that resisting nothing is something that, okay, Eckhart Tolle, Ramana Maharshi, these guys, they can resist nothing like 24/7. But for us, regular people, it's kind of what you said before we started. You have maybe a second or two here and there that are little seeds of what that feels like. And then maybe we have those seeds that actually somehow show us, consciousness will show you what the result is. And when we have moments of surrender and the ability to feel what it feels like to resist nothing, that keeps us going to try again. Because it's not like, let's say I've been working on this for years, but there's moments when I can go through a period where I'm resisting nothing for more than a second a day. But then life happens. But I think just having the knowing of it in the back of my mind, that there's actually a place where if I can step into that place, that is my goal. And the nothing, that's an interesting part. When we say resist nothing, most people, I mean, even I will be like, what is nothing? What is
What
that?
is nothing?
And I think that that's where I would start with this. Because if you say the words resist nothing, it's kind of like the third step of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're turning our will and our lives over to the care of God. I'm like, what does that actually mean? But practically, if I'm resisting nothing, it's basically you surrender to every single thing that comes at you in life.
Stop fighting.
You stop.
Life.
Exactly. That's the step one in this process. Instead of saying resist nothing, you say number one and stop fighting. Because we actually, I think human beings know what that is. If we stop, it's almost like, don't say resist nothing, say stop resisting. That's the beginning of this process. I've been thinking about this a lot, that I didn't know how not to resist everything for a really long time. That's how I lived my life, resisting everything. Because in the end, nothing really goes your way.
No, exactly. It never goes. No, but that's so true. So why don't we learn from that? Why don't we learn from that? And the question is that when you say you resisted everything, and today we're working on resist nothing, /2, we have to stop to fight life. It's so much ease in all that, in these words. That's really inviting you to go with the flow. Why is it so difficult to do that? What are we resisting in resisting or doing it?
I
Is
believe
it control?
definitely control is a survival mechanism. If we don't control our outcome, then we expire. I
But
think
we
that
can't
that's the
control
human
much.
condition. We're attached to our opinions. We're attached to what we think is right or wrong. It stems from basic need to survive. So it's just in our DNA to resist, I think.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. So, I
Happy I
mean,
got this little moment today before our pod because I could feel that space it gave me. And I was thinking of you too, because I think Pernilla has such an easy access to laugh. And I love that. You laugh for everything. You have a great, but my kids also say, well, she's laughing all the time. It's wonderful. I never laugh. I'm just an angry
Yeah, but you're
bat.
going through a life crisis, so I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
I decided now that I would be happy. I would be smiling. I would go and smile and be happy to
Just,
everything.
yeah,
To
yeah.
everything.
Just resist nothing, Louise. Just
Resist
do it.
nothing. Just do it. I'm just gonna be. I'm not
Yeah, I mean,
resisting.
so what I came up with too as an sort of an example, I touched on this in our last episode of the radical forgiveness episodes that we made. My daughter had a surgery this year, and something that was supposed to take 6 weeks took 3 months because her recovery was so awful, and everything that could be a setback became a setback, and things happened that I didn't even know existed, problems that were related to the surgery. And at some point, we had decided that after 6 weeks, we're going to go home, right? She's going to go back to school. And we had rented an apartment in Baltimore where her doctors are. And the day before we were going to, literally the weekend before we were going to go home, something happened that prolonged our stay by about 6 weeks. And in that moment, or not in that moment, but in that process, I realized that I can't make any plans or decisions, even when people say what's happening this summer or any of that. It was so big what was happening. And it wasn't life threatening, but it was extremely hard. I literally only lived in the day for those few weeks. It was basically get up, what are we eating? Take her to her treatments, come home, what are we eating? Doing like the medically necessary things for her, go to bed, get up, what are we eating? And it was almost as if my brain stopped thinking about next week. I could think about tomorrow. You lose track of time. I lost track of time
But time just
because
became
so unimportant.
unimportant.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And it wasn't like I was resisting what was happening to her, but it was sort of my part in her journey was fully surrendered. Because also, as a parent, you have to be. If you're resisting things are happening, that's hard for her. You have no control.
But you have no control. And I
No.
think you're saying two things here. First of all, why do we resist to resist nothing? Because we want to have that control. But in the end of the day, we don't control anything. And the other thing that you say is there was not importance, there were no time, but still you had a time of 6 weeks that became 3 months.
Yeah.
So, so,
But
so
at the
no, but
end of
at the end of the day, I understand. But so no wonder why we are complex people, because in one hand, the time had no importance in that moment because you just did things from moment to moment. But in the
but
big
also,
perspective, that it was school and she wanted to go back to school, and now it didn't go 1 week or 6 weeks, it went 3 months. So, and then we want to control the whole thing, and we don't
yeah,
control anything.
it became 6 weeks, but I didn't know that at the time because they could not tell us when we were leaving. During that process, I stopped asking, and Alice stopped asking too. When can I go home?
Then you have surrendered.
It's interesting to know what it feels like to resist nothing. Even though it was extremely hard, if there is a moment where I can resist nothing, there is lightness. Just like a simple thing, we ordered takeout and it was disgusting, and then we didn't feel well, and Alice maybe threw up or something, and then we'd be like, oh my God, and then we laugh about it. So there's moments in this awfulness where the light comes through.
But couldn't you say, now if I compare it to what happened this morning for me, when I got this little experience of resisting nothing, I could feel the tightness in my body dissolved. Like in a good way, becoming like, if you want to visualize a little drop in the ocean, I just became a bigger part of the ocean. And as you say, I felt completely light in my body for a moment.
Two things there. You feel it in your body, and the way that I feel it is that I literally become so present that it's a physical experience of presence. There's only right now. And I love what you said about the drop in the ocean, because that's actually something that I thought about yesterday, where Sally Kempton, my teacher, she was a scholar and an expert in this Hindu philosophy called Kashmir Shaivism, which is a tantric philosophy, which basically means that everything is God. Everything is consciousness. Your bad thoughts, your negative thoughts, difficult situations, happy situation, everything is consciousness. Everything is God. So when I think about resisting nothing and resistance, I mean, this is like super deep. I'm sorry, but that's the idea, right? If we are living in an ocean, we're a drop in the ocean, and the ocean is consciousness, the ocean is God, then we don't have to resist anything, because we know that it's consciousness. And that's a concept, right? Because we can't, I mean, that's so big of a concept. But if we saw each moment, and that's what she says, everything, every negative thought is also Shakti, as she calls it, the creative force of the universe, consciousness, then we can see that there's no resistance needed. But we are adverse to negative events. We don't like it. I just wanted to introduce that concept that if everything is consciousness, we can step beyond resistance. If we fully could grasp that concept. And that's the whole idea, the idea of the drop in the ocean. I mean, we talk about that in meditation a lot, because if that drop becomes part of the whole, we see ourselves as part of consciousness.
I completely understand that. But I want to underline something. I think it's important that there is not an end of this journey. So
Oh, no.
we can't complete the consciousness. Because when you talked about the drop in the ocean, I got this visualization that when the drop drops down into the water, there is a little resistance to get the drop in to merge with the rest of the ocean. And that must be the unconsciousness, because the resistance lies in the unconsciousness.
Yes.
As long
Yes.
everything is conscious, we can work with it. And I think that we need to say also in this podcast that, of course, we are not aiming to get to a goal in all this. We are aiming to work with ourselves in all these different layers and nuances. And I think that even I and Pernilla, while we're talking about this, we also, it's like when you're baking a bread, you stand and you kind of massaging the,
kneading.
you're kneading. Exactly. And that's what we do with spirituality as well, and with the awareness.
So true. So true. I believe the way to dig that stuff out of your unconscious is to practice. If it's meditation or therapy, and we've talked about that a lot, various ways to slowly bring the crap out of your unconscious mind. And that, I mean, that can take time, but I know that everybody, or most of us, can understand when a pattern, a behavior comes to the surface, and we ask ourselves, why did I do that? Why am I angry right now? Or like you said earlier, when you heard the words resist nothing this morning, when you were thinking about it, it brought up, it triggered you. And then you can ask, why? That's the unconscious mind, like it's sending up a little signal to us. And if we bring awareness to those moments, they can be brought to the forefront. Like that's how we start digging up stuff. But of course, it's always going to be more stuff in there.
Absolutely. I think when you say that, it's really to resist nothing, because I thought of this also this morning when I had this moment and when I was teaching. An access for me to resist nothing is to be curious. And just what you said, when it's triggering, to ask myself, why? And
Yeah.
not that I maybe not get the answer, definitely not. But that's not the
Yeah.
importance. But the importance is like when I ask myself in that moment, as you say, when I ask myself why, then I can allow myself to be a little bit curious and maybe try to investigate a little bit. Then I get another access to it. And it's not so scary, or I can work with it in a nicer way, in a kind way.
Yeah.
Which I also think is important when we work with ourselves.
Yeah. You have to do it without resistance. I mean, and that's what you said, that there's no destination. When I think about the description of the ocean, that's the vastness of the
Yeah.
universe. It doesn't have a finite
No.
container.
No.
It's infinite. But I do believe you always come back to curiosity, which is exactly what we're doing here. I mean, this podcast is an investigation into the continued understanding of spiritual concepts. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're sitting here, we're being curious, and we continue to figure these things out. And it's not there's no end to this conversation. And I mean, we could keep talking about various spiritual concepts for years because there is no destination. And I think I would get really bored if there was nothing else to work on. But I guess, stillness will arrive at some point where I don't think about it anymore, but hasn't yet. So there you go.
But the question is that when that stillness is settled in, you probably would like to continue to inspire other people.
I'm looking here and I was thinking about various tools. So when you, like in your class this morning, and did you have this as a theme, or was it something that you were thinking about for yourself?
No, I share that. I always take,
So,
this came up.
so it was something that people could have in their mind's eye while they were doing the yin yoga. Just to contemplate, a contemplation.
Yes, I brought them into maybe some asanas or posture that are a little bit more triggering than there are asanas that are more where you feel more tension, or some that are more comfortable in your yin yoga classes. So
there's resistance in the body in some of the poses.
exactly.
Yeah.
So this morning I guided them into the body and asked them where they felt the resistance in the body, where were they tense, the target areas. And then I asked them how can they use the breath to feel how they start to resisting less and less and less. And then you can add your mind onto this and say, if my intention is that I will resist nothing, I will use the breath to support me into this space. And then when you allow yourself to be in that space, you can feel more and more less of resistance.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, the question is, where do you have resistance in your life?
Yeah.
And if there's anything that's sort of
Such a good question.
Yeah,
But I like
what
to
are the
work
things?
when you ask me that, if you know, when you ask us that, I would say, as a yogi, we work with the 5 bodies. We have the
Subtle
physical
body.
body,
Yeah.
you have the physical body, the mental body, emotional body, energetic body, and I would also say the spiritual body. And I always ask myself, the physical body, where do I feel resistance right now? Or maybe around the heart a little bit, around my lower belly. Okay, I can work with that. Mental, I have this mind coming back all the time. Same thought coming back and back and back and back. That's the
Rumination.
resistance. Yeah. Then I can get into my emotional, and I have my feelings, emotions, and I don't want to feel that I impatient. I don't want to feel that. So I want to kind of push it back. That's a resistance instead of allowing that negative feeling to hold space for it. And then I get into the energetical with my breath. Feel like, can I really breathe completely in flow, or is my breath stopping up here, or what's resisting it to bring it down to the belly? And I can do so many wonderful pranayamas or breath work to really use the breath to resist nothing. So we did a lot of breath work also in the start of the yin yoga practice this morning. And then not everyone wants to connect with the spiritual path, but that's what I guide them into. If they want to put their hands on the heart and breathe in and out to the heart area, it's like polish a mirror when you go in and polish your heart. And then they will feel if there's any resistance in the heart.
It's hard to feel sometimes.
No.
There it is. Yeah. It's just, and it's like this simple thing as just saying yes instead of no.
You are good at that. You are so good at that.
Well, I don't know.
Yes, you are.
But
I spent a week with you in Baltimore, and I would say that Pernilla inspired me so much. I would say you have some circumstances that allow you to say yes to a lot of things that maybe I can't say yes to and other people can't say yes to. But of course, we should not compare. Definitely not. But we can be inspired by people. And I would say you inspire me with your laugh, and you inspire me with saying more yes than no.
Yeah. But I think that this is something to try, where you're disagreeing with somebody. And our default setting is to convince them to agree with us, right? Just a simple thing. But there, you can ask yourself, it's okay. I don't have to, they can think what they think. I mean, that is a simple thing in life. We can all do that. This person thinks of this.
It's not simple because the ego feels. That's why it's not simple, because
I'm saying that is something to try at home.
Absolutely.
When your husband or your kid says this is the way it is, and you immediately want to say, no, it's not. Then you go, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, cool. If that's how you feel. Like, I don't spend any time arguing with people anymore about what they want or what they think or how they see things. But again, I feel like,
but you validate.
Come back.
You validate, don't you?
If somebody thinks differently than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you just ignore them.
Yeah, think what you think. It doesn't matter.
I don't care.
No,
you validate.
No, I don't. I feel like that this comes back to what you're talking about, the body, which I am still trying to sort of find words around how to feel things in my body, because you're way better at that than I am. But I feel like I have a felt sense of what it feels like to not resist what people say anymore or resist what they want. And I sort of stay in that feeling instead, because I don't want to spend the time to resist. It comes back to what we said in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a state of being.
A state of being, exactly. But then I would suggest for you, as you say, that you have a hard time to feel it in your body or experience it in your body. I have a client of mine, she always said, she comes to all my yoga classes and all the breath work, and she's like, I can't feel any energy. And it's like, I know you feel energy. What do you expect? But to bring that back to you, what about resist nothing into your body?
I guess that's what I'm getting at. I know what it feels like, but I just don't know how to put words to it. Okay. We're going to leave you with just
resist nothing.
No, it's asking why, what am I resisting and why?
Do you want to see my list? Should I read my list?
Yeah, read the list. And then all the things that we talked about here today, just considering what nothing is. Is there a piece of you, a little small piece of you, that can actually fully, or that could possibly believe that everything is consciousness? And if I can believe that for 1 second, can I let go of resistance? Because if everything is God, everything is consciousness, then there's no need to resist. Can I just for a second say, I can believe that for 1 second? But then you could be like, oh no, that's weird. I'm not going to. Just taking that with you for the day as a contemplation.
Pernilla did a nice explanation in the start, resist nothing versus resistance and allowance. I think that was a little bit the key into this podcast.
Mhm.
how you explain that. At
Mhm.
least I think it really broadened up my view on this.
So resting in the being of nothingness versus the action of allowing.
Yeah, I just thought of what John Kabat-Zinn says a lot in his mindfulness teaching, where he goes, experience the doing comes from the being.
Yeah.
I think it's as close as message you can come of resist nothing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when we do resist, it's because we want to take the control. We think that we can control it, but we can't control it.
Mhm.
And why do you
Mhm.
think it's so
Mhm.
hard to resist of letting go? And again, I think all this, as we have discussed, we need to take all this with curiosity and some kindness, because this is a journey. It's supposed to be interesting. It's supposed to be fun. We grow from this. It's not that we're going to dig a black hole and bury it ourselves. We're going to grow from this. Sometimes we can have some topics that might feel or you experience it becomes heavy, but after winter comes spring. So we need to blossom up. That's why we keep on growing. We want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you, Pernilla.
Thank you so much, and thank you for listening. See
Yeah.
you soon.
See you very soon.